Why are students rejecting Nzimande's proposed 6% tuition fees increase? Are universities using fees to exclude students from poorer families? Is it possible to have a single coordinated higher education system in the country? And is business fully committed in helping fund the country's tertiary education? What time is it? It's question time. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Mpho Tsedu. What started as protests by Wits University students against proposed tuition fee hikes for 2016 has suddenly spread like wildfire. What seems to have aggravated the already chaotic situation is the rejection by students of a 6% increase in tuition fees announced by Higher Education and Training Minister Dr. Nzimande yesterday. Our Twitter handle @QuestionTime24. My guest today, Thabo Moloja, is the president of the South African Union of Students, and Professor Tawana Kupe is Wits University Deputy Vice Chancellor. But before we continue, let's have a look at what Minister Nzimande had to say about the student protest.
And that's why I would really urge the students to seriously consider this compromise. Whilst then we start this other process of looking 2017 and beyond.
That's fine. Indeed, we welcome into studio our guest. Welcome to Question Time, Prof.
Thank you, Mpho. Good evening to you.
Yes. You are the deputy president of SASCO, right?
Yes,
Let's
yes.
put that on record.
Yes,
You are
sir.
not in the other capacity.
No, I'm here as Deputy President of SASCO.
As deputy president of SASCO.
Thank you.
Well, I'm also a political scientist. So my understanding of politics says SASCO has been in trouble at tertiary institutions. The EFF has been gaining ground. But all of a sudden, SASCO seemed to be bouncing back. Was this the right opportune time for SASCO to take advantage and, if I may use the language, occupy the space?
Thanks for the question. First, I don't believe that SASCO has been losing ground in tertiary institutions. If that was the case, we would not be running 80% plus of university SRCs who are leading these protests that have started in various universities. Yes, quite true. The EFF, and to some extent DASO, giving us a hard time. It's not as easy as when I first joined the university and I was a first year, where there was only plasma and other weak student formation.
Yeah.
But I believe that now we are challenged. EFF is there in numbers. There's taken a chunk of our own members to begin with, and some who came from the ranks of the Youth League. They operate the same with us. They use the same political strategy. So in a way, really we're finding it tough in various institutions. But I refuse the call that they are taking over the sector. We're still relatively in charge. Okay. But yes, quite true. We are facing challenges here and there. As it relates to some of these protests, I think, if you look into the sector in recent, in the past 2 years to be precise, you realize that there's been a lot of dissent around a number of questions. The issues of races in our universities, the issues of transformation that have been coming up strongly in the discourse. But now, which is it was quite necessary, is the issues of university fees. And they fit within the broader context of a transformation of the sector. Okay. That universities fee, they keep on going double digit all the time. And this is frustrating to the workers, our parents, and the workers of South Africa who can afford, who don't get a double-digit increase in their salaries to start with. Okay. But added to this, because this is not just a student struggle, it's also the worker struggle. We've seen how our mothers and fathers are abused in our universities through the process that has done in terms of outsourcing. A lot of cleaners, they can't afford to take their kids to school. They don't benefit from the bursaries of the universities, which doctors and professors of these universities qualify to educate their kids with incentives in these universities. So it therefore means that a cleaner will produce a cleaner because they can't afford to take their kids to a university. And a doctor who can afford in terms of how the money that they earn, but also has benefits in terms of the university infrastructure to take the university to university and get discount. This is unacceptable and it must stop. We think it's a high time that we raise some of these questions.
But you occupy the same building as the ANC.
Yes.
Your head office is at Lutuli House.
Correct.
Why don't you just walk upstairs to talk to the ANC and say, look, leaders, you are failing us?
We've done that in a number of times. We've done it in all platforms.
saying you failed?
We are quite happy that in the ANC resolutions, the question of free education is there. The problem is the state. Because what the ANC has an NHI policy.
Yes.
What is the state doing? The ANC has a free education policy since Polo 1 in 2007. Mangaung went ahead, went further to say these are the steps that the government must take. The minister must release in 2014. The minister must release in 2014 a policy of fee-free education.
Okay, but who are you talking about when you say the state? I mean, these are the same people that you're with at Lutuli House.
Correctly, but they're also with opposition. They are also with other parties in government. You see what is happening in It's not just the ANC. It's not.
But it's not. Are you saying that the ANC is failing to implement its policies?
Correctly, the ANC is failing to implement free education policies.
Okay, so we can't blame
ANC
Prof here.
No. Well, we can't blame Prof in part, but universities equally, they are on the wrong by increasing fees way beyond inflation rates.
Okay.
When they are not even giving their workers the same increases in salary adjustment.
Okay.
They are exactly wrong. But also corporate sector. It's quite ridiculous that corporate sector contributes only 2% to higher education. Well, they are members of some of these boards of universities, some of these corporate giants. I know that the chairperson of University of Northwest, where I used to be a student, is the CEO of Toyota. But there are no investment that are being done by some of this corporate sector into the education of our young
Prof,
people.
let me bring you in here. Are you finding yourself in an unfortunate situation?
No, on the contrary. What the students are campaigning for, we believe in as well.
Really?
Yes, we believe that the...
No, why is there a strike?
No, the strike, remember, I think he's articulated it well. In part, it is against universities, but in the broader framework, it is about the state's funding of what are public universities. And the call for free education cannot be a call to universities, because universities don't fund themselves. Remember, in South Africa, we run a public universities, which are funded by the state in large. And where at present, and this is the campaign for free education, at present, the universities charge fees. And what the students and the students' movement are saying is that universities in South Africa, which are public universities, should not charge fees. But the reason why fees are being charged right now is the gap between what the state gives to universities and what it doesn't. It's being covered by fees. So where we agree, we would say that if the state came up with a financial model next week, which says we're going to fully fund public universities, universities could not dare ask for fees, because why would they do that?
But, Prof, if things were as simple and easy as you put them, you would be joining the march today.
In our university, and I speak for our Vice-Chancellor, well before these demonstrations, Vice-Chancellor has always insisted on any fora that a march to Pretoria for higher education funding, he would be part of, we would be part of. Remember also, something that might be forgotten in these protests. Before the Higher Education Summit, which was about 2 weekends ago, the Vice-Chancellors, under the banner of University South Africa, the former Higher Education South Africa, petitioned the President. The President called a number of ministers, no less than 6, and some student leaders and chairs of council. They met in Pretoria for about 5-6 hours. They had a public open press conference, created a task team, which must report by the end of month on this very issue.
Now, Prof, I don't know if this is a fair question to you, but why is there a protest at Wits and there's no protest at University of Venda? or University of Northwest, Mabatu branch, or TEFLUP?
I don't know the dynamics that are there. But
let me give you what I think are the dynamics.
Yeah.
What I think are the dynamics are that your university has now taken in a lot of black students who do not afford the high fees which were afforded by white students in the past. And it was not a problem for Wits University to raise funds at that particular point.
I think you are simplifying things too much.
Okay.
I think what you are quite correct in, which we are very proud of, by the way. Wits University is one university 21 years after democracy. 75% of its students are black. At least 55% of those being African. That's very important statistic because it means that in relation to students, this has transformed. You won't find a university with a history like Wits, which was formerly, historically a white university, which boasts 75% black students. I was in France recently at a meeting of South African universities. Venda was there, by the way, Vice Chancellor was there, and French universities. And I told them something that is a French journalist who asked me something that's interesting when she asked about transformation. I said, the interesting thing about the 75% black students that are at Wits is that they entered on their own points, not just on being black.
Yes.
Right? So you raise an important question in relation to their funding. It is true, therefore, that of the 75% students, especially 55% that are African, a higher proportion comes from poorer families that historically did not come to Wits.
Okay, Prof, I want to just stop you. I'll give you time to proceed on that point. I want us to take a quick break and we'll continue this question time.
Good. Point. Sit.
Get behind Rugby World Cup 2015 on SABC.
Everybody wants to look like Superman, and unfortunately nothing in a bottle, nothing in a capsule form will give you muscle. It's hard work, in fact it's smart work.
It is time sportsmen and women realize that supplements may be contaminated with banned substances and that this can affect their health in the long term.
The only way a supplement can be regarded as safe from banned substances is if the entire supplement batch is tested and cleared by an accredited anti-doping laboratory.
Join me on Health Talk every Saturday morning between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. as we unpack current health stories.
Welcome to Network, a technology news program that also discusses what's trending in social media in and around Africa.
MTN has launched its new movie and television streaming service, Front Row.
If it's trending, we will find it. That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. I guess Thabo Mlojo is the Deputy President of the South African Student Congress, and Professor Tawana Kupe is Wits University Deputy Vice Chancellor. Now, Prof, let me allow you to just finish off that point.
Yeah. So it's at Wits, for example, we have out of 33,000 students, 13,000 students pay their way. Quite a proportion of that would be white students paying for themselves. Historically, we know the history of our country, they can afford to. Quite a number of black students also pay for themselves because of the phenomena of the new middle class. About 19,000 students are covered by NEFSA's corporates. Not enough, as the Deputy President said, we need more contributions from corporate sector, but also we shouldn't ignore another contribution from the government sector through state-owned enterprises. Your Transnets, your ESCOMs and others do sponsor engineering students. But the truth of the matter is we're sitting here today is that even with all of those contributions from families which are struggling, especially the poorer families now are why we are here today. It's because then, correctly, their wages cannot afford these institutions, which, by the way, let's ask ourselves in the context where universities are not fully funded by the university. What challenge universities like this with 75% black students face? One thing they can't do is dump down their quality. So now, because if you did that, 75% black, now the quality of the education goes down, and those students don't come out with the degrees that will make them compete fairly in the economy. That is why the struggle for fully funded, sustainable, long-term future for our public universities, especially those that have diversified from historically white to majority black percent, is an absolutely important phenomenon. Because what does it do? It means that our people now, who were oppressed by colonialism and apartheid, will now get the education that is equal to earning.
6% you're rejecting.
6% that was proposed in the meeting with the Minister, University Vice Chancellor and chairpersons of universities, as well as some student leaders. The student leaders who attended the Tebogo Hotel said it quite clearly that the demand is 0%. This will go back to students for consultation, and it was rejected immediately. And if students are saying we want 0%, then they must be given 0%. We feel that the minister demonstrated some level of leadership. Unfortunately, he failed today in Parliament. But that he has not achieved much. We believe the call must go beyond the minister. The minister has delegated the department by the president. We believe the president now must come on board and really deal with the issue. And he must know that 1% is too much to even consider that the demands of students is 0%.
Now, Prof, can you afford 0% increase?
No, as I explained earlier on, the problem with where the universities set their fees is the difference between how they are publicly funded and what they actually need, which is being covered by fees. And I'm not therefore saying the increases are justifiable. We agree that the increases must go down. We can even agree that they go down to zero, except that when they go down to zero, somebody must step in to cover that financial gap. Because you can't wake up tomorrow again and say to students, because nobody covered the gap between 0 and 6%, we're now going to give you an inferior education. That is not correct. 21 years after democracy. Our people need the best education you can ever get, because just to lift our country up, just to lift the continent up, and to compete globally, we need to be the best we can. And the students that are in our universities, they are admitted on good points. These are good people. These are people who can achieve.
So what is going to happen now? I mean, you are old enough to understand that revolutions happen, and they happen, in most cases, they are led by young people. Students are the ones who normally lead these revolutions. And we are in one, if I may declare it that, Students are not likely to back down, and we need to know what is going to happen. Are you going to admit them on 0%?
We could well do that, but what we can't also do is to be cynical. Admit people on 0% and then not give them what you promised to give them. I think what is going to happen, clearly this problem, as my colleague here pointed out, is not just a problem of fees. It's a problem also of the income levels of some of the parents who send here, which is also a historical question, which is a big question which 3 weeks ago a Frenchman was here, Thomas Piketty, talking about inequality. But it's something that we know as South Africans: poverty, inequality, and unemployment. They contribute to people not being able to access important institutions that will lift up not just individuals, given the nature of our culture, but a whole family and whole communities.
Okay, I want to just welcome all our viewers who have been watching probably other programs as well. But right now we'll be taking your calls live, and if you've got questions, we've got the SASCO Deputy President here. We also have the Professor Tawana Kupe from the Wits University. The numbers to dial is 089-1104-210. Now, what happened in Cape Town today really puts this on another level.
What happened in Cape Town is what we've always argued against. I remember at some point I came here after the so-called violent protests of students. And I've always said this, that students in their nature are peaceful. Students in their nature are peaceful, but there are instances where the intervention of the police leads to violence. There's been protests since since last week Wednesday until today. But because of the minimal presence and role of the police in that protest, there's not been any damages, burning of properties and casualties, people being taken to hospital. You see it in the videos. I was watching it here in the SABC studio, what happens in Parliament. When police starts to use aggression to try to control the crowds there. What students wanted there was the minister to come and speak to them, and the gates were refused to be opened. When you refuse to open our gates, we open them ourselves without any apology, because we are not a threat to this government of the day. It's our government of the people, elected by the people. Us who participate in election, we've elected our public representatives, and they are accountable to us. So when you say come and speak to us, you must dare not log those gates that belongs to us. We believe universities are doing by raising fees. We believe that they're locking the gates to those who can afford them. So that was a mistake. But we see it in Parliament, and this is what has happened. In NNMU, students were shot. In University of Limpopo Teflop, students were shot. And this, we've called, also because it's us who called the national a protest. There have been 4 institutions marching, Wits, UCT, Stellenbosch, as well as Rhodes. But SASCO took out a call to say we are declaring Wednesday as a national shutdown. And we're happy that other student formations, TASO joined in, EFF joined in on the national shutdown. But we're seeing now, we're seeing the aggression of the police, which will lead to unintended consequences. Because our students will not. We've seen how students have been harassed in Stellenbosch, and female students being attacked and shot and being arrested.
Okay, Anonymous, you're calling us from Vereeniging.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, afternoon, sir.
Okay, yeah. The way things are happening there, it's a pity, but now the Minister of Higher Education, Nzimande, knew exactly what was going on. As a parent, I paid the school fees and everything else, and I'm expecting to pay. I mean, I sympathize with my children, and they won't be surprised seeing parents as well getting into that, because I cannot wait for my children seeing what is happening there. I've got the children. I mean, my children being beaten like that, and now we say, okay, right. I mean, they are fighting for their rights.
Okay. Thank you very much. Prof, what is the way forward?
I think the way forward is, at the risk of sounding very simplistic, is very clear. Recapitalization and further funding of the higher education system in its entirety. And that includes also, if we're going to continue with the fees, that means that NEFSAS must actually give adequate funding. Because as we sit now, NEFSAS doesn't necessarily give adequate funding. Right. And then there are people who should qualify for NEFS who don't qualify for NEFSAS, but don't get enough to be able to send their children to universities. So here we need a big rethink about how we fund our higher education system.
Do I get an idea here, Prof, that you actually, as the academia, you are very happy that the students are protesting?
No, we can't be happy about a crisis and a challenge in our society. Why? Let me tell you why. Right now, what is happening now, where students are not in class when it's about exam time, will have dangerous consequences.
Okay, hold it there. Let me take a call quickly here. Bupedi or Mupedi, you are in Mpumalanga.
Yes, good evening, Tabiso, and your guest in the studio.
Yes.
Comrades, we are very disappointed about the mother body, which is the ANC behavior today. Even on Twitter, they are calling students hooligans. The very same ANC that we have been voting for the past 21 years, that has been promising us everything. But now, because the students are only asking for 0%, they are being shot with hand grenades and rubber bullets. The very same students that are in the institutions because they don't have money, they are being funded by NSFAS. Some of them, they can't even get graduations because they've got their own NSFAS. So we are asking the mother body, which is the ANC, to stop treating us like we are slaves in our own country. This is our country. We have fought for this democracy. Let us live there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mupedi. This seems to be some ANC affair. I get the feeling.
The ANC, it's a ruling party. It's a majority party in parliament. The ruling party drives policy in this country. And it's the ANC that bails out everybody else who messes up. The SABC, SAA.
What are you saying about us?
Now I'm saying the ANC, when there are problems in SABC of money, the government of the ANC, they are able to bail it out. When there are problems in ESCOM, financial intervention, they bail it out. When there are problems in SAA, which is used by the elite, the poor people don't use SAA, they use a train, they use a bus, they use a taxi. It's bailed out by this government. Bail out education.
Okay. Let's
Fees must fall.
Fees must fall.
Fees must fall.
Oh, that's the hashtag. Okay, let me quickly just go through our tweets here. Andy Lembete says, can the grievances of students be heard? Lives do not have to be lost in the process. It's quite absurd and it's being used by political parties to score cheap points. Fees increase next year. Why not protest next year? Madi Mujapelu Mutwaka. That is Mutwaka at Question Time 24. However, we've come to the end of our program. That was Question Time for today. A big thank you to my guests and to you for watching the show. Let's meet again next time. Have yourself a wonderful time. Goodbye.
Everybody wants to look like Superman, and unfortunately nothing in a bottle, nothing in a capsule form will give you muscle. It's hard work, in fact it's smart work.
It is time sportsmen and women realize that supplements may be contaminated with banned substances and that this can affect their health in the long term.
The only way a supplement can be regarded as safe from banned substances is if the entire supplement batch is tested and cleared by an accredited anti-doping laboratory.
Join me on Health Talk every Saturday morning between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. as we unpack current health stories.
Media Monitor, the title says it all. Can we really afford more job losses at such a critical time in our economy? Join our panel of experts as they unpack and monitor all the leading and breaking news stories making waves in the print and social media platforms. It seems we don't have a famous son-in-law any longer. Levi, what do you say to this? An A-lister.
I'll leave this one to Levi. He's the romantic.
Watch Media Monitor with me, Alicia Jali, Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
Welcome to Network, a technology news program that also discusses what's trending in social media in and around Africa. MTN has launched its new movie and television streaming service, Front Row. If it's trending, we will find it. That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
Hello and welcome to the second hour of Your World on SABC News Channel 404. I'm Tabile Nwato.
And I'm Lily Babu. Thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at stories making headlines at this hour.
Chaos outside Parliament as protesting students barge through the gates demanding to be addressed by Higher Education Minister.
Inside Parliament, Finance Minister Nhlanhla Nene paints a bleak picture about the country's financial economic situation.
And tertiary institutions at a standstill countrywide as protests against fee increases spread across the country.
Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has made a surprise visit to Moscow. The reason for the visit was to thank Russia's President Vladimir Putin for launching airstrikes against his Islamist militants in Syria.
Syrian President Bashar al-Assad was warmly received by Russian President Vladimir Putin in the Kremlin. The visit is believed to be Assad's first foreign trip